Time for more. All right. Next chapter is called I'm Yours. Let me tell you about being man's best friend. Being man's best friend can mean a lot of things. Companionship, belly rubs, tennis balls. But it can also mean a dark, endless highway and an open truck window. It can mean the smell of the wet wind as hands grab the box you're in with your brothers and sisters and you go sailing into the unkind night. And still, crazy as it sounds, you're thinking, but I'm yours, I'm yours, I'm yours. Okay, I'm going to reread this page because this obviously is kind of like Bob's childhood, doghood, puppyhood. A dark, endless highway and an open truck window. The smell of the wet wind as hands grab the box you're in with your brothers and sisters and you go sailing into the unkind night. And still, crazy as it sounds, you're thinking, but I'm yours, I'm yours, I'm yours. No one. That's what being man's best friend can get you. A black highway, an empty box, and no one in the world but you. Early days. I don't remember much about my early puppy days. It wasn't 3 years ago. It was 3 years ago, but sometimes it feels like 300. Mostly I recall fighting with my sibs for the primo meal spot. Lots of squirming and squeaking, everything soft and milk-smelling and movable, like we were one great big complicated animal. I never met my dad, and my mom didn't say much about him, except that he was trouble. Mom had a beautiful fawn coat. Chihuahua, some this, some that. Nice, messy bloodline. Mutt's rule. Mom crooned to us, told us stories, laid down the law. I wonder if she knew she didn't have much time to prepare us for the world. We were born in a dark place, probably under some porch stairs, I suspect, since I remember the sound of boots plodding up and down and the biting and ugly smell of human feet. They called my mom Rio, and they fed her most days, though sometimes she had to fend for herself. She never showed fear towards them or respect. Indifference, I guess you'd say. Unless they tried to handle one of us. She growled then, hoping to make it clear that we were hers and hers alone. I myself got picked up a couple times. The hands reached in, grabbed. They were rough and smelled of strange scents, bitter and meaty. My mom's growl made me fearless, and I wriggled and yipped. The hands shoved me back to the warm place where I could sleep and drink and dream in safety. Still, I understood in my simple puppy way that dogs belonged to humans, and that was how it would always be. Boss. My mom wasn't much for names. She'd had a lot of litters. I guess she'd run out of ideas. My brother, First, was Natch the firstborn. Runt, my youngest bro, was the last. Dot had a little spot on her back, and Yip was always complaining. I was Rowdy. Goes without saying. And that left my oldest sister. We all called her Boss. Boss was small but mean, with a distinctive, sharp-sounding bark. She could outmaneuver any of us to the best spot for dying in. I admired her grit, even if she did get on my nerves. When we got a bit older, less blind, more cocky, I fought her off occasionally, but mostly, Boss won. She was fearless, that pup. Next chapter is called Alone. The truck happened without warning one night. They threw us in a box. Left my mom behind. I could still hear her frantic howls. I landed in a muddy ditch. It was a cloudy night, nearly freezing. Even the moon had abandoned me. And the smells, everything so wild and unknown. Animals with big jaws and bigger appetites. Birds that swooped in to kill. Death and life all mixed up together. I searched for my siblings until the truth became clear. I was utterly alone. Cars. The next morning I began my slow journey, moving through the tall, wet grass, my limbs stiff from the cold. Now and then I drank from a mud puddle or gnaw on some grass. By evening I was wobbly with hunger and thirst. I followed the highway. Every time a four-wheeled creature roared by, I froze in fear. A car. And yet, and this is what slays me, I knew that cars meant humans, and humans meant the possibility of living, just as much as they meant the possibility of dying. The owl. Darkness had followed when it came out of nowhere. The owl. A shadow in a shadow. They don't make a sound, you know, not a sound. It's quite impressive when you think about it. Luck. Just as her talons, those marvelous weapons, raked my fur, I caught my right front foot in a small hole and stumbled. If she'd gotten hold of my body, I wouldn't be here. But all she managed to do was grab my tail. Only time in my life I'd regretted my handsome hind quarters. I was airborne, hanging upside down, dizzy and dazed, and just crazy enough to think, hey, I'm actually flying. Before the terror hit full force, I caught a whiff of other animals below. Later, I found out they were pocket gophers, but back then, I just knew I was smelling something completely foreign. The owl must have decided the gophers would make a more satisfying meal. She let loose her grip, and I plummeted to the earth. Ah! The way that was written, at first I was thinking that he got saved because he got his foot stuck in a hole and stumbled. But because of that, she grabbed his tail and he's regretting his butt, his handsome hind quarters, because that's what she grabbed. The owl grabbed and then carried him away. Flying cool, dropping, no. More luck. Maybe it was my puppy fat, or my soft bones, or maybe my incredible good fortune. But I didn't die, didn't even break anything. I'd flown twice in my short life and lived to tell the tale. I wonder if I'll find out about thee. Or is he calling the time that the box was thrown out the window flying? I don't know. Will. I found a small hollow at the base of a fallen tree. Poked my nose in and got a swat and hiss from a grouchy raccoon. Kept going. Waddling, whimpering. Lights ahead. New strange smells. Kept going. Kept going. It's amazing how much the sheer will not to die can keep you moving. Oh. Exit 8. That rings a bell to me. Finally came to a small road curving off the main highway. Exit 8 turned out to be. A big billboard overhead had a picture of a terrifying animal on it. Of course I didn't know what a billboard was. Didn't know that the scary animal was a gorilla, let alone that he would become my dearest friend. But something told me to follow the off-ramp. And eventually I ended up at the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade. Home, the one and only Ivan. History. I made it to the mall. Slept in dirty hay by some garbage bins. The next night I found that hole in Ivan's cage. Stole his banana, slept on his belly, and the rest, as they say, is history. For 2 years I lived at that seedy old place that was part mall, part circus, and part crummy. But that was nothing compared to Ivan. He spent 27 lousy years there. I forgot it was that long. And our dear friend Stella, an old circus elephant, was stuck there for most of her life, too. When Stella passed away, it nearly broke Ivan's heart. I tried like crazy to get him through those dark days. But what really saved him, I think, was Ruby, our baby elephant friend. Before Stella died, Ivan promised her he'd get Ruby out of that awful place. And to my amazement, he actually pulled it off. Ivan and Ruby and a bunch of our other pals ended up going to different places, zoos, and sanctuaries that knew how to take care of them. They're with others of their own kind, and they're loved and well cared for. It's been over a year now since we all moved, and they seem so much happier. Me? I lucked out. My girl Julia, whose dad had worked at the mall, decided her family needed a dog. Who was I to argue? 2 square meals, my own bed, all the belly rubs I could beg for? What dog in his right mind would say no to that? The best part is, we don't live far from Ivan and Ruby. I get to see them all the time. I'm glad they're nearby, and I'm thrilled they've settled in so well. Really, it's a solid solution, but it's not a perfect one. Tennis ball. The way I understand things, it's like this. We live on a lonely ball called Earth. Humans have basically been thrown against the wall for so long that the poor old ball has fallen apart. It's like me with a tennis ball, chewing away until it's nothing but pieces of slimy rubber that tastes like, well, slimy rubber. And that means there aren't as many places left for wild animals. Seems there are good zoos, and good sanctuaries and bad sanctuaries. Just like there are good dog families and bad dog families. The good places are trying to keep wild species healthy and safe. They don't want endangered animals to go away forever. They also don't want the earth to turn into a slimy, dilapidated tennis ball. Although, honestly, slimy rubber doesn't taste that bad. You should try it sometime. No thanks, Bob. The thing is, I would give anything to see my dear pal Ivan deep in the jungles of Africa where he was born. Or to see Ruby running across the savannah with a herd of elephants with her big ol' ears flapping in the wind. I'd give up a mile-high pile of bacon cheeseburger just to see that happen. I really would. But it ain't happening. I get that. And so do they. When you're an animal, it helps to be a realist. I'm going to stop there. The next part is actually part 2. So I'm going to pause there. But I love that he still sees Ivan and Ruby at their zoo. That makes me really happy. Makes me a little nervous, though. There was something that I read there that made me nervous. And it was about how there's some good zoos and some bad zoos. And I really hope they're not in a bad zoo. Ivan already had 27 bad years of Mac at the mall, okay? He deserves a couple good years. All right? That's what I think.